Good evening, everybody. The grant space. It's important we dive into the current happening in the grant community. Thanks for joining us as we are committed to update you on the situation as we wait for the disbursement and also as we expect these people to disburse as promised. Thank God the Easter break is over today, being Tuesday, April 2025. We are all expecting the money to drop in our account as promised. But nevertheless, it is very important. This message of mine today, it will be opposite, directly opposite on what is currently going on. In as much as we are expecting this money, we should also be acquainted with the other aspect of life, as in the other aspect that it might happen, it might not happen. We should know the happening in the grants community, which is very, very important. A lot of write-up is flying around, going on in the grant space that some people are rejoicing, some people are celebrating, and there are some write-up that when you listen to it, read, go through it, you would know that sometimes it might fail us the way we expect, the way these people sell these things to us. And therefore, it's very important so that we know how we guide ourselves, we know how we expect the money that we are waiting for. And so let's dive into the latest and hottest news that is flying all over the social media right now concerning the long awaited grant. And some people can be so creative, and of course this is nothing but the truth, and I wish you listen to as I go through what is currently going on in the grants community, so that you will not be surprised if in case this money is not given to us. Remember the promise that this April will not pass. Of course, today being the uh, 22nd of April, we are already going far, and they keep saying that it will be disbursed. And let's see, let's listen to this write up that makes me calm my brain, and of course, it will make you, in as much as you are expecting, you also have a second thought, as this is not the first time these people came up promising and giving us week and all that. So let's dive into the latest updates right now in the grants community. I read the metamorphosis of grants scam saga in Nigeria. This comes up today being 22nd April 2025, and of course this person came up with a strong message that when you listen to it, you will get to know how to guide yourself. So as long as what we are expecting in is concerned, I go ahead. So listen and pay attention. Okay. In the past 12 years, from SEM to power of 25, and finally to intervention fund, we have encountered, or we counted, about 122 grants that have come with different type of stories and promises, and of course with scams. They didn't just promise the grants, they came with scams and a lot of stories. So let's dive in and see what this man is saying. They came with a lot of promises and scam, losses, disappointment, and zero disbursement. At the end of the day, they don't disburse. The bottom line is that they all flourished in an atmosphere of illiteracy, timidity, deep gullibility, and failed security system. Of course, we all know all the people in the grant space, they are gullible and of course timid, and that is why they pump in money to this grants community, even as our security is not doing the right thing to us to call them into question and arrest them. They are aware of what is going on, and the government is not doing anything. That is the system we find ourselves in the grant ecosystem. Let's dive into what is happening. Of course, this will interest you the most. There are some of this there are some of their remarkable stories. Number one, there is money in CBN. That is what they usually say. This has been the major storyline from 53 of the 121 grants in the system. They said there is a certain strange money in CBN that must be shared to the masses through them. You will hear slogan like we all know there is money in CBN. That is what they usually say. Another story that they usually put across to everybody in the grant ecosystem. That is number two story. Money from deaf men trapped in CBN. Money from dead men trapped in CBN. Those that have died, and that is the money they usually project that they will disburse. Let's listen to this. This was also floated by most of the grant handlers. They said that the grants they planned sharing was brought into the country by certain men that was dead, and somehow they had been chosen to distribute this dead man's money. That's happened in the case of Mama, I think Mama Rita, Saint Rita, or something. And then they said, oh, they choose Apostle Ken to do the disbursement, and that has been the story in the grant ecosystem. Let's dive in without wasting any time to number three. Money arriving in container. Oh, this one, I guess I know the person that usually say that. Anyway, let's dive into what happened. This may sound funny. Of course, this may sound funny, but it also trended in this ecosystem. Oh, this ecosystem, this word makes me remember elder statement. He was the one that brings in this statement, ecosystem, grant ecosystem, and he stood and defend why he has been calling the place ecosystem. He came up with so many philosophies. Kudos to elder statement, Apochono, Reverend Dr. Apochono. He has invented so many words that many people are using now in the grants ecosystem, grant colony, and the rest. And without wasting time, let me dive into what is happening right now. This may sound funny, talking about the fact that money arriving in container. This may sound very funny, but it also trended in this ecosystem that certain money arrived in container and was seized or intercepted by the EFCC. And finally, subscribe if you are new, as we are committed to update you on the trending happening, so as long as this grant ecosystem is concerned. All right, sorry about that. A call came in as I was trying to explain the issue of money arrive in a container. Of course, they keep saying that certain money arrive in a container. Of course, that AEFCC uh, floating the money and then keep the money, and the money finally is out for intervention or grants, and so certain people were finally asked to share the money. This is what is going on in the grant community. Number four thing that you will be hearing in the grant ecosystem is that money from USA. Of course, there some of them keep saying that this money is coming from USA, and that is what they want to share to the people, and they will keep collecting money from the poor masses and enjoy themselves, buy houses, buy cars, and live large, stay in the hotel. Of course, they usually say money is coming from money. This money comes from USA. Let's go ahead and narrate what they usually say. This narrative was made popularly bought by UAAG marketers. They narrated that their money was brought in by the US, and in their videos and pictures, we actually saw men who are allegedly staffs of the US allegedly working with the grant handlers for the disbursement of the very grant they were talking about. Of course, when they want to do something and get something from the masses, they package it very well. I quite remember that time that people came from US that they are the one to speak and help deliver us, and then people jump in, pay a huge sum of money that they demand from the people, and they pay a lot of money. Of course, these people that takes the money and run away. At the end of the day, they start blaming everybody in the grant ecosystem. That was when this man was relevant in the grant community to, I think I've forgotten the name. I will call out the name when I remember the name. Of course, it happened everywhere. Number five thing that happen in the grant community, the usual word they use in the grant community. My name is on the document. Of course, this one they usually fight every day. Our grant pressure group will fight. These people will fight. These people will fight. UAAG, Theobarth will fight that his name is there. My Supreme will also come up that she's the one to disperse. This is the usual statement. This also sound funny, but they also trended about five grant handlers bragging that their name were in certain grant documents, giving them authority to do the disbursement. This also died down, and another story adapted immediately. Of course, we all know this statement is no more trending anymore. The trending one right now, as I speak with you, is money which anybody can disburse. It was all Grand Pressure Group that said this. I still remember, of course, they said this money anybody can disburse. Anybody can disburse. But up to now, all Grand Pressure Group, they are keeping quiet. Highest they will tell you silent is golden. But bring the money. There's no money. They said money which anybody can disburse. So laughable. So funny. This also trended, of course, for some time, that there was a certain money in CBN which can be disbursed by anybody as long as you are an ambassador. As if that wasn't enough, early this year, another one came up, of which we are still battering right now, paying money as I speak with you. As you are listening to me, people are paying in money. So many platforms paying. Some are paying 1,000, 5,000, 500. Some are collecting a little so that it will not hang them. Of course, they are wise now. Some are collecting millions. Of course, that is the IMF, CBN, and UN money. This one is the latest. They started it this January. IMF, CBN, UNN money. That is what is currently trending right now in the grant space. This is the latest storylines that started flying around from January this year. It went fast and viral and was used to scam fresh billionaires of naira from lots of gullible Nigerians. Of course, it affected me anyway. I will not count myself out because the way they projected it, I didn't want to be out. And of course, up till now, they are yet to disperse. They promised and they said that they will pay even before Easter. And of course, up till now, we are still here. Nothing is happening. This is the latest happening in the grants, but it also amazes you that people are still paying. Even as I'm doing this video, people are still paying to this IMF, CBN, and UN money. It is so loud, and it's something that we have to put a stop and then call on them to do the disbursement as promised. They should not do the way they did previously. So finally, let's take a look at what is currently happening after this IMF and all that. They came up saying that President Tinubu money, of course, there is money that President Tinubu will share, and that is what is trending now as I speak with you. This is the very latest and most deceptive storyline that has swept across all grants currently. As soon as our current president was sworn in, he floated that he floated what is known as renewed hope agenda. This president promised all sorts of grants, loan, and palliative to Nigerians to alleviate poverty, boost the small medium businesses in the country, and rescue the economy. Immediately, the president announced this. All the grant handlers in the ecosystem immediately changed their stories, despite the fact that all of the grant handlers existed long before Tinubu administration. About 12 of these grant handlers has found a way to push the narrative that their money is coming from the president Tinubu and his renewed hope agenda. As sweet as sweet and as acceptable this sound in the ear of the masses, the bettered masses also wish it comes to pass. Sorry about that. As sweet and as acceptable this sound in the ear of the masses, the battered masses also wish it come to pass. In fact, what they all say now is that all their disbursements are from the same federal government, and it is all starting immediately after Easter holiday. Of course, I said it from the beginning of this voice note that the break that they told us is over and that they should do the disbursement. Of course, this is what is happening right now. One unique thing about almost all of these grant handlers is that they all made it clear that they had not traveled abroad for grant and had not brought in any grant into this country. They also claimed that their job was to assess a certain money which is domiciled in the CBN. This is what is going on. Enjoy your day as we expect disbursement this week, according to the circulating update. Of course, I am not exempted. Of course, based on the fact that we subscribe, whatever happened in the grand ecosystem, I have to bring it on board for everybody to know our current state and for us to know what is happening in this ecosystem. We invest our money. Therefore, I can't keep quiet. I have to bring on board what is going on in that ecosystem we invest our money. So this is what is happening. You see, they came up with the story that there is money in CBN. They graduated to another story that money from deaf men trapped in CBN. They came up with another story that money arrived in container. We still believe them. And all this, they are not just saying it, they are saying it, they are collecting money from the masses. They said they want to disperse, but they are collecting money from the masses. They came up with another story that money from USA. As if that wasn't enough, they came up with the idea that my name is on the document that they are the one to disperse. They came up with the idea that anybody can disperse the grant. They came up recently, IMF, CBN, UNN, and of course, they came up with the idea that President Tinubu's money, all these things is happening. Up till now, we are still here. No money, but we have been paying them. You have to be wise. Stay tuned. Good News Live Update is committed to update you on the trending happening. So as long as this grant is concerned, we are not trying to be negative. We are trying to see how we can project the two sides of the coin so that it will not affect you even case it happens the other way around.